Hello guys, welcome back to another physics tutorial. Today we are going to be doing unit conversions part 2. This time we're not going to be using the move the decimal trick because we're going to be working with unit conversions where you can't use the decimal trick. We're not going to be using those unit prefixes to do our conversions. This time we're going to be given conversion factors, such as the ones that we see here up in the upper right hand corner. Let's say I was given a problem where I have to convert 50 miles into meters. How am I going to do that? Let's take a look step by step. So step 1, I'm going to write 50 miles down, 50 miles. Now I'm going to write that as a fraction. The way I write that as a fraction without changing its value is I'm just going to write it over 1 because anything divided by 1 does not change its value. Okay? Then I'm going to jump into my conversion factors over here, and I have 2 of them. I'm starting with miles, so I'm going to use the mile conversion factor first. I have 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. And I'm going to write that as a fraction as well. But there are 2 different ways that I can write it as a fraction. I can write it as 1 mile over 5,280 feet. I'm going to use the abbreviation for feet. Or I can write 5,280 feet over 1 mile. And both of these are equally valid. Why is that? Well, both of these fractions are equal to 1. If 1 mile is the same thing as 5,280 feet, then 1 mile divided by 5,280 feet is just multiplying a value by itself. So these fractions are equal to 1. And what's cool about that is that we can multiply by either of these fractions without changing the value of the original fraction, 50 miles over 1. But we need to choose which fraction we are going to multiply by. So we know that we have miles in the numerator of our original fraction here. If we want to cancel out miles, we're going to have to multiply by a fraction that has miles in the denominator of our fraction, right? Because if something is in the numerator and the denominator of a fraction, then we can cancel them. So we are going to choose our second fraction here because it has miles in the denominator. All right, we're going to use the second one. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply my original fraction by that second conversion factor, 5,280 feet in the numerator and 1 mile in the denominator. Okay, and those miles are going to cancel because we have 1 in the top, 1 in the bottom. All right, but we're still not done because we're in feet now and we need to get to meters. So we're going to use another conversion factor. And this time we have 1 meter is equal to 3.28 feet. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to write that as a fraction, but I'm going to choose the one that cancels out feet. So I'm going to make sure I write feet on the bottom. All right, 3.28 feet, where feet is on the bottom. 3.28 feet with 1 meter on the top. It's the same fraction as 3.28 feet over 1 meter, but 1 meter over 3.28 feet will allow us to cancel out our units. All right, and now we're done, so let's do a check on our units here. All our units that we have in this big fraction should cancel out except the one we want. Let's make sure they do. First, we have miles, and we see miles in the top, and we see miles in the bottom. So miles cancels. Then we see feet in the top, feet in the bottom. So feet cancels. And lo and behold, the only unit that is left is our meter. We're looking like we're in good shape. So now I'm going to go along to the next step, and I'm going to do a little bit of multiplication here. I'm going to multiply all of the numerators of my fractions, and I'm going to multiply all the denominators of my fractions. So first, let's do the numerator. All right. I am going to pull out my handy dandy little calculator. Where is my calculator? There's my calculator. All right. And I'm going to do 50. Oh, come on. Be good for me. All right. I'm going to do 50 times 5,280 times 1, but we're not going to worry about the times 1. I mean, we can do it for just for clarity's sake, but times 1 isn't going to change anything. So 50 times 5,280 times 1 is going to give us 264,000. So I'm going to write 264,000. But guess what? I also have to worry about my units. The only unit that is left in the top, the only unit that did not cancel was the meter. So I'm going to put the meter there. And now let's go to the bottom. We have 1 times 3.28. With a little math, you know that is just equal to 3.28. And so we get 3.28 in the bottom. Okay, we don't have any units in the bottom. They all canceled, which is a good thing, right? That's what we expected to see. So now all that's left to do is divide 264,000 by 3.28. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to divide, come on. We're going to divide, oh man. We're going to take 264,000 and we're going to divide by 3.28. And we get 80,487 as our final answer. So I'm going to write that down. We get 80,487. And if we wanted to get technical, we can go 0.8. Woo, that was a little bit rough. I'm going to undo that. 0.8. And I'm going to round it off to 1 decimal point. In my classes, I really don't care about rounding. You can round to 1 or 2 decimal points, whatever. I'll be able to figure out if you round it or not. So it's a personal choice. And then we have to include our unit, which is the meter. So finally, we see that 50 miles is 80,487.8 meters. And that's our final answer. Awesome. All right. So now let's go ahead and jump into a little bit tougher problem, right? This problem is going to be a little trickier. We're going to have to convert 34 miles per hour to meters per second. Oh, well, that's a little different. Now we're dealing with 2 units. We have miles and we have hours, and we need to get them to meters and seconds respectively. Well, we're going to do it the same way. We're just going to start with writing our given as a fraction, 34 miles per hour. But notice the per. That means it's a rate. Miles per hour is miles divided by hour. So I'm going to change 34 miles per hour into 34 miles per 1 hour. Okay? There are 34 miles for every hour. We are going 34 miles for each hour. So now I'm going to go ahead and do what I did before. I'm going to convert my miles into my meters. The first conversion factor that I'm going to use is 1 mile on the bottom, because mile is on the top here, so we need mile on the bottom, to 5,280 feet. Okay? And then I'm going to use my other conversion factor here. I have 3.28 feet on the bottom. On the bottom because, feet is on the top in the previous fraction, and 1 meter on the top. So now I have meters taken care of. I have miles converted into meters, but I need to get my hours into seconds. How am I going to do that? Well, you should already know the conversion factors for hours and seconds. 1 hour, you definitely know that 1 hour is 60 minutes. At least I would hope so. Okay, if you are taking physics, you may want to know that. And then 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. 60 seconds. So we have 2 conversion factors there that we can use. So let's use them just like we did before. Let's start with the first one. 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. We know that hour is in the denominator of our fraction here. So this time we want hour in the numerator. So we're going to put 1 hour up here, and on the bottom, we're going to put 60 minutes, okay? And then for the next fraction, we have minutes on the bottom. So we want minutes on the top, right? We had, just so we're clear, we had minutes on the bottom down here. So now we put minutes on the top and we put 60 seconds on the bottom from this conversion factor right here, right? This conversion factor that I'm about to erase because it's kind of getting in the way. So I can rewrite it up here. 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. So these are the 4 conversion factors we used. 2 of them were given to us, 2 of them we just knew. And so we have this whole long fraction. We're going to deal with it the same way we always do. Right? We're going to multiply and divide. But first, we have to make sure our units work out. So let's do a check. I got miles on the top, miles on the bottom, cancels. I got feet on the top, feet on the bottom, cancels. I got hours on the bottom, hours on the top, that cancels. Finally, I have minutes on the bottom, minutes on the top, that cancels. So all I'm left with on the top here is this meter, and all I'm left with on the bottom is this second, which is going to give us meters per second. So we're looking like we're in good shape. All right. We're going to have meters on the top because that's our only unit, and we're going to have seconds on the bottom because that's our only unit. So now we do a little bit of math. All right. We're going to go back to our calculator. We're going to grab this guy, and we are going to do a little math here. So 34 times 5,280 times 1 times 1 times 1, doesn't change, is equal to this number, 179,520. Cool. Then on the bottom, this should look kind of familiar. We are going to have 3.28 times 60 times 60. Okay? And we get 11,808. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down here, 11,808. We multiplied all the tops together and we multiplied all the bottoms together. So now we get this beautiful fraction, and we're going to go ahead and divide as our last step to find out what our final answer is, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. I have 179,520 divided by 11,808. And our final answer comes out to 15.2. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down here. 15.2, and our unit is meters per second. Meters per second. 15.2 meters per second. All right. So that's another example of how to convert with units, except this time we tackled a much more difficult unit conversion. We converted 34 miles per hour into 15.2 meters per second, which will be a valuable skill that we will be coming back to all year in physics and for the rest of your physics career, because units are powerful in physics. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Take care.